Of all of the maps that I purpose-built for the game, Redsnag is one of the most disappointing ones in my opinion. Now that I've had the time to improve as a creator and really truly understand what makes a level fun and what makes a level interesting, Redsnag I feel just doesn't have that spark. When you boil this level down to its bare essentials, it's just two waves in the end. It's one wave going from west to east and one wave going from east to west. There's no conflict in directions. Not to mention that Redsnag itself is basically split in half, with the top 3 tracks dedicated for trains to Millsbridge and the bottom 3 dedicated to South Burn. Honestly, as I'm writing this commentary, I'm looking at this level and thinking, hey, maybe I should go back and edit it, because there's so much excessive tracks and it could look a lot more interesting and be a lot more fun if it wasn't so track heavy and there was a little bit more challenge to it. But if I do go back, I'm afraid I won't be able to fix the 2 waves problem, but oh well. Anyways, this level introduces around 2 to 3 new mechanics, depending on how you look at things, and personally I think that's a bit much. The main mechanic, and the one that is focused on the most, is obviously auto signals. However, there are also auto blocks and auto reversing at a dead-end platform introduced in this level. The latter one is kind of sketchy, not all players will see that button or think to even try it out in the first place, and there's nothing to indicate you should use that here, but it's something that might be introduced here. It depends. Regardless, with how confusing auto blocks are and how complex auto signals are, why are the two tied together into one stage? Well, as I've mentioned before in previous episodes, the first few levels have kind of been influenced by Endless, as they were supposed to be a pseudo-tutorial for Endless, and at the time this level was released, auto blocks had auto signals on them. This was a change that was made very late into the game's development due to a very simple exploit that was found. Since auto blocks came with auto signals, and you could sell an auto signal by downgrading it to a manual signal, you could often buy all the auto blocks on the map and make a profit on each one. Now, obviously not on everything. If you look at Prague, if you look at the stations Radotin and Smichov, I am probably butchering those names, but nonetheless, if you look at the auto block there, you're not making a profit there, but on pretty much every single other one on the map, yeah, you make a profit. Or, well, you would have made a profit if that bug, well, the feature, I don't know what to call it, wasn't patched out. I found it, I reported it, I put it as a high priority bug, and they fixed it. So, auto signals and auto blocks being tied together into one map, that's a relic of a bygone era. If I were to redo these maps, these early maps to the game, I would definitely separate auto blocks and auto signals into their own unique levels, especially considering that Redsnag only has one pair of auto blocks and they're both the same length, so it doesn't really teach you much about auto blocks in the end. Speaking of early levels for the game, Redsnag is sort of the last one that was broken by signal stopping penalties. I believe they came in after Gateway, but as we'll see in the next episode, Gateway wasn't affected by them at all, and in fact still has them to this day. But for Redsnag, a lot of the trains coming from and going to Millsbridge, they got messed up. The regional train and the commuter train that sort of leave the station at the same time, since they both had signal stopping penalties on, you had to delay the entry of the regional train in order to give the commuter train enough space to beat it at the intersection at Redsnag, because they swapped tracks, At Millsbridge, the commuter starts at track 3 and it goes to Redsnag track 2, while the regional goes from Millsbridge track 2 to Redsnag track 3. And our solution at the time was the worst solution out of all the levels in the game for fixing this problem with signal stopping penalties. Because we just didn't do anything. Straight up, we did nothing. The level was still technically possible. You had to know a technique delayed entry that most players wouldn't know at this point, but it was possible, and so we just didn't care and we just let it happen. Up until the recent update 3, this was how things were. And honestly, I'm ashamed that I was willing to let that happen for so long. It took the game getting updated 3 separate times for me to go out of my way to try and fix this. I'm disappointed in myself, quite frankly. However, on the return wave, you know how there's the wave from west to east and then the one from east to west? The west to east one was messed up and we didn't fix that. But the one from east to west, I did do some minor modifications. Modifications which, in the end, I don't think changed anything. I don't think did anything. But I guess I'll give my past self a participation trophy. Come on, man, you could have done better. Regardless, that's all in the past now. It's been fixed. I made the right call in Update 3, and I do still believe there are things that could be done to improve this level, and the game's sort of quote-unquote early tutorials in general, but hey, at least it's fixed, right? That's something. That's about it for Redsnag. Wow, that commentary was kinda a bit short. You know what? Let's do another one. Gateway introduces only one thing, and that one thing is tunnels. And it really only has one, but one tunnel is more than enough to demonstrate what they're supposed to do. So that's it. Gateway really doesn't have much to talk about on the level design aspect. It's kind of boring. It's just 12 trains, 6 in each direction, 3 different lines, so 2 trains per line in each direction. It's not a very special map. Except it is the first map in the game based on a real location. Not the first map that was included in the game based on a real location. That title goes to Waiting the Willamette. However, it's the first map sequentially that you're supposed to play through that's based on a real location. The place is Gateway Transit Center in Portland, Oregon, United States. It is the closest train station to my house, and it is where 3 routes, the red, the green, and the blue lines, either converge or diverge, depending on which route you're going from the heart of the city. If you're going towards it, they come together, and if you're going away from it, they go their separate ways. The blue line goes out east to Hillsboro, I guess. I don't know where it goes. The green line goes south to Clackamas Town Center and the mall complex there. And the red line loops around and does this weird little thing where it goes into single track for just a little bit before going back to double track, and then it goes north up to the airport. But the red line is definitely the part of the level that makes it look unique, makes it stand out. And that's how it actually looks in real life. The track layout here is as close to reality as it can be. Obviously, changed up a little bit for gameplay interest, but every switch is as close to reality as it can be, with only one minor exception being the double slip switch out east. That's not there in reality, but it's just a minor concession to the game's design, so I really don't care. But, well, the most important part of the level, the tunnel, is where it's supposed to be. It's technically not a tunnel, it's actually a bridge, but there's no way to represent bridges in the game, so we just use tunnels instead. It's much easier that way. There's really only one last thing to mention about the realistic aspect of this level, and that's I-205. That's just the name of an interstate around here. It's not actually a station. However, the tracks do return to double track fairly shortly after crossing under the bridge, so I thought I'd just end the map there rather than going all the way out to the next station. It just made things a little easier when designing it, There is one thing I guess I should mention about the level's design, and that is the auto signals. They were only added in Update 3. They weren't there before then. Prior to version 3, they were just manual signals. The reason we updated them is actually something from a long time ago, which is that somebody was complaining that the lower left section around 82nd Avenue was kind of annoying to manage because you kept having to reset all the manual signals even though they could only go to one destination. And because all the signals were manual, you couldn't just use, say, an infinitely queued route. That was all the way back when the giveaway was still going on, so it's been a long time, but now that I'm looking back at these signal stopping penalties, and this is one of the few levels that I don't want to remove it from, the manual signals were way more annoying than they actually looked at a first glance. So, we removed them. Simple as that. Personally, I really can't tell the difference. Partially because I haven't played this level in so long that I don't really remember what it was like with manual signals, but I hope it made a change. I hope for newer players, using the auto signals and the ability to use queued routes will make this level much easier for them. And, well, that's it. That's the episode, folks. These levels don't really have too much going on with them. It's important to get the details right for them, but there's not as much as with Wakefield or Daytona as there is with Redsnag and Gateway, even combined. I think we're sort of reaching the point where I don't need to do this commentary added in post, and I can just start doing it live, which will make this editing process a lot easier for me. But at this point, the levels are getting much longer and far more interesting. These first 4 levels, again, they're basic. They're supposed to just be very simple things to get you started in the game, but the next ones are starting to amp up the difficulty. It's still not too hard. I've beaten way harder levels than these, but it'll be a nice change of pace, you know? However, the next episode might actually be something a little different. Since I did 2 levels in this one video, I might do something a bit unique for the next one. It'll still be Railroad related, don't get me wrong, but it's just gonna be a little diverse. Maybe not exactly dev commentary worthy, but nonetheless, I hope you people find it interesting. It might, however, just be episode 4. We'll move on to Gloucester next, but, well, only one way to find out, and that's to wait a week. Thanks for joining me in this episode. Cheers, folks.